He didn't build his empire quietly. He shouted it into existence. He wasn't the calm genius behind the computer. He was the storm standing next to it. Unpredictable, wild, unstoppable. When you think of Microsoft, you picture the calm logic of Bill Gates, right? But what if I told you, the man who screamed, sweated, and jumped across stages was the one who walked away richer than Gates himself? This isn't just a story about technology. It's about power, madness, and money. It's about a man who turned chaos into wealth and noise into legacy. Pause, dramatic tone. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe, because what you're about to hear is not the story you know. It's the secret history of a man who defied logic, rewrote leadership, and built an empire louder than any voice in Silicon Valley. Detroit, 1956. A city of engines, factories, and noise. The perfect birthplace for a man made of energy. Steve Ballmer was born into movement. His father, a Swiss immigrant, worked for Ford. Discipline, order, precision. His mother, a passionate homemaker, believed her son would be unstoppable. She was right. At Harvard, Steve wasn't just another student. He was a force. He studied applied mathematics but lived like an athlete of the mind, leading pep rallies, organizing events, solving equations for fun. He wasn't the quiet type. He was the engine room of any room. And that's where he met a young man with piercing eyes and an obsessive focus, Bill Gates. Two completely different energies, destined to collide. Gates, the thinker. Ballmer, the doer. One built ideas. The other turned them into empires. They became unlikely allies. Bill was the brain. Steve was the adrenaline. And years later, when Gates needed someone to help run his small but ambitious company, he made one phone call that would change tech forever. "Steve," Gates said, "I need someone who can make this thing big." Ballmer laughed. He was already at Procter & Gamble, making good money and climbing the corporate ladder. But Gates wasn't offering a job. He was offering ownership. It wasn't about salary. It was about a slice of a dream. A risky, crazy dream called Microsoft. Ballmer didn't hesitate. He quit his stable career, packed his bags, and joined a company that didn't even have an office coffee machine. He became employee number 30 and future billionaire number 1. The early days of Microsoft were chaos. Gates was coding like a machine. Developers slept under desks. Contracts were written on napkins. And Steve Ballmer? He was selling the dream. He didn't write software. He sold it to the world. He recruited, negotiated, yelled, laughed, and demanded the impossible. He turned software into religion. And people followed him like believers. He was the engine behind the code. While Gates was the brain, Ballmer was the heart, loud, beating, unstoppable. When Microsoft launched Windows, something changed. The company went from being a tech startup to a global phenomenon. Everyone was using it. Every home, every office, every classroom. Ballmer's strategy was simple. Dominate first. Profit later. He didn't want Microsoft to win some markets. He wanted Microsoft to own every market. But the world didn't understand him. They saw a man sweating on stage, screaming, "Developers, developers, developers," over and over. They mocked him. They turned him into a meme before memes existed. What they didn't see was the genius behind the madness. Every shout was strategy. Every drop of sweat was marketing. He wasn't just performing, he was programming human emotion. When Ballmer yelled, people didn't just listen. They believed. Because his passion was real. He was selling more than software. He was selling conviction. In 2000, Bill Gates stepped down as CEO. And the world expected a new genius in glasses. Instead, they got a man who screamed his way to the top. Steve Ballmer became the new CEO of Microsoft. And Wall Street panicked. They called him emotional, unfit, unpredictable. But while investors doubted, Ballmer smiled. Because he knew something they didn't. Microsoft wasn't about to fall. It was about to explode. The dot-com bubble burst. Companies collapsed overnight. Microsoft lost 60% of its market value. Analysts predicted the end. But Ballmer didn't blink. He bought back billions in stock. He cut the fat. He restructured the company into a machine built for survival. And and when the smoke cleared, Microsoft was stronger than ever. He turned crisis into opportunity, and chaos into billions. During his reign, Ballmer did something most CEOs couldn't dream of. He expanded Microsoft into everything: the enterprise, the console war, the cloud, the global web of dominance. Under his watch, Xbox was born. It wasn't just a console, it was a cultural revolution. He made Microsoft cool, powerful, and everywhere. Even when the world mocked him for missing the smartphone wave, Ballmer didn't care. Because while Apple and Google were chasing hype, he was printing cash. Every decision he made had one rule: outlast the competition. He didn't chase trends, he built fortresses. That's why, when he finally stepped down in 2014, his Microsoft stock made him richer than almost every founder in Silicon Valley. Quietly, silently, the man who screamed the loudest became richer than the man who started it all. But wealth was never his addiction. Energy was. He believed that emotion, real, raw, unfiltered emotion, was the ultimate business weapon. In a world of quiet CEOs, he was thunder. In a world of careful speeches, he was chaos. And that chaos was contagious. People feared him. People admired him. But no one could ignore him. He wasn't trying to look smart. He was trying to win. And after dominating tech, he looked for a new arena to conquer. A different empire, one with fans, lights, and adrenaline. Basketball. In 2014, Ballmer bought the Los Angeles Clippers for $2 billion. Everyone said he was insane. He smiled, because he wasn't buying a team. He was buying influence. He brought the same Microsoft energy to the court: passion, vision, and endless resources. He turned the Clippers from a background act into a billion-dollar powerhouse. Within years, his overpriced purchase doubled in value. For Ballmer, it wasn't about basketball. It was about legacy, about building something loud enough to outlive him. Pause, deep cinematic tone. They say silence is power. But Steve Ballmer proved the opposite. Sometimes noise is power, if you know how to control it. Because when the world laughed, he doubled down. When the world doubted, he worked harder. When the world went quiet, he shouted louder. And somehow he won. Steve Ballmer was never the kind of billionaire who hid behind a fancy desk or a designer suit. He was sweat, noise, and pure movement. He believed success wasn't about elegance, it was about energy. And that belief made him different. While other CEOs chased appearances, Ballmer chased momentum. He used to say, "If you're not sweating, you're not working hard enough." It sounded crazy, but behind that madness, there was something profound. Ballmer believed enthusiasm was the purest form of intelligence, and that belief took him all the way to the top. Music fades in slow, intense pulse. When he became Microsoft CEO in 2000, the company was a fortress, but also a ticking time bomb. The world was changing. The internet was swallowing everything. Apple was rising from the ashes. Google was becoming a religion. And Microsoft was starting to look old. But Ballmer wasn't built for surrender. He was fueled by something most people never understand: the fear of becoming irrelevant. He knew time was the real enemy of every empire. He knew power doesn't last unless you have the guts to reinvent it. So while the world laughed at Microsoft, calling it outdated, Ballmer started rebuilding it. Not with caution, but with explosions. Music builds, rhythm accelerates. He bet billions on cloud computing, enterprise software, and long-term infrastructure when nobody saw the future in it. He was called insane, old-fashioned, a man from another era. But Ballmer saw something others couldn't. A world where people no longer needed disks or downloads, but instant global access. And that vision planted the seeds for the modern Microsoft we know today. Azure, Office 365, LinkedIn, the backbone of the digital age. Pause, softer tone. Ballmer wasn't just a manager. He was the man who taught one of the biggest corporations on earth how to survive its own shadow. But victory came with a price. Music softens, emotional tone. Behind the scenes, his intensity turned volcanic. Colleagues said being in a meeting with Ballmer felt like standing next to a thunderstorm. He shouted. He clapped. He sweated. He laughed and cried, all in the same breath. It was as if his soul was constantly on fire. And maybe it was, because behind that electric personality, there was still the shy kid from Detroit. A boy who grew up believing the only way to be loved was to win. And he did win, over and over again. But victory never felt enough. Soft piano enters, intimate tone. When he stepped down as CEO in 2014, many thought Ballmer would disappear. But he didn't. He returned, louder, freer, and more alive than ever. He bought the Los Angeles Clippers for $2 billion, the most expensive sports purchase in history at the time. And what looked like an impulsive move became a masterstroke. He brought to basketball the same philosophy that built his career: energy, sweat, and creative madness. He rebuilt the team, reshaped the brand, and even designed a billion-dollar stadium, transforming the Clippers from a forgotten franchise into a global powerhouse. Music becomes more heroic. It was as if Ballmer was saying, "The game changes, but the energy stays the same." And he was right. Voice steadies, deeper, calmer. Today, Steve Ballmer stands among the richest men alive. But more than that, he's living proof that raw enthusiasm can outlast raw genius. He's the reminder that being loud isn't weakness. It's life force. Because the truth is, success doesn't belong to the calm. It belongs to those who burn. Music shifts, slow emotional rise. Ballmer's story is not about perfection. It's about obsession. It's about a man who refused to shrink his soul just to fit the mold of professionalism. He didn't want to be the silent genius. He wanted to be the man who felt every second like it was the last pitch of his life. Pause, echoing silence. And that's why he became a legend. Not for being the smartest, not for being the calmest, but for being relentlessly human. He taught the world that enthusiasm, when aimed at the right direction, is a force stronger than fear, stronger than failure, stronger than logic. Voice softens, closing reflection. Maybe that's the real legacy of Steve Ballmer. That even in a world ruled by data, control, and silence, there's still room for madness, for laughter, for sweat, for real human fire. Because at the end of the day, the calm ones build, but the intense ones change everything.